Hi, I'm Katherine Bird, and I want to talk to you today about the dark forces and COVID-19. And really, this conversation can include many other things in life and in the world when we're looking at the conversation around the dark forces that are looking to hold us back, that are looking to stop our ascension, and that are trying to punish us, to feed off of us, to uh, somehow hurt us. And this is a conversation that's been coming up a lot lately in relationship to this virus, but I hope that you can see the larger picture about how this often comes up, especially when we're having times of distress, times of feeling out of control, times of wanting answers to the reason why something troubling or painful might be occurring in our lives individually and then collectively as a whole. And I've been seeing this a lot lately, and maybe you have too. I've been getting videos from people, I've been seeing things online, I've been reading things, and there's a lot of people running around talking about the dark forces and how that they are trying to stop our ascension, how this is the final battle, how this is this big play of the dark forces or the reptilians or all of these, different groups that are here to hold us back and hold us down and to keep us from being in the light and evolving and growing and being in peace and harmony and so forth. So first of all, I want to state that I am a shamanic practitioner, that I teach channeling, that I am in communication with spirits, that I am not discounting the fact that there are other energies, that there are lots of different things out there, that there are what we would call higher vibrational energies and lower vibrational energies, that there is a huge all-encompassing possibility to everything. So I'm not starting this video from the place of in any way that you are wrong or that any of this is not within the realm of possibility. And so just so you know that right off the bat, I'm not someone who's like, well, there aren't any other things, so you shouldn't be scared of them. That's not where I'm coming from. But I do have quite a few reasons why giving our time, attention, and energy to even this conversation isn't really helping and supporting us. So I hope that this video helps you. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comment box and feel free to subscribe and join my community. And there's lots of other stuff here. So what happens when we start to go down this rabbit hole? And maybe you've been down this rabbit hole, maybe you've been down this rabbit hole very recently. You start watching one video and another video and another video, and you start reading these articles, and wow, it can really take you out, can't it? And it can create so much confusion inside of you, and maybe so much like, aha, yes, this is definitely it. And a lot of belief structures start to be built. So what could be going on here underneath the surface? Well, first of all, in this process, we're really giving up a lot of our agency, our sovereignty, our free will in a lot of this. We are starting to see this overpowering elusive force that's outside of us, something that is so grand, so large, so powerful that it's in control of everything, right? It's controlling government and people and media. It's controlling the world. So if this is true and you're putting your attention towards that, that is an incredible energy drain, because how can you work with this? It's unworkable. It's an untenable situation in most people's cases. It's creating more fear, more anxiety, and more stress. We're being attacked, we're being taken out, there's stuff actively moving against us. And in that, we might lose sleep, lose focus, not be working on our spiritual practices in the same way. We might be focusing our spiritual practices towards fear or towards protection or towards trying to keep something from happening. instead of actually working on increasing our light and love and higher vibrational frequency within ourselves. And sometimes we're giving our power away to actually the people who are producing all of this content. So we're giving our power away either to kind of these dark forces, really, in a way, or sometimes to the spiritual leaders and the teachers and the healers who are out there talking about this, because they seem to have some sort of plan. They're this spiritual warrior who's going to teach you how to not to be taken over. And in that, you can be investing a lot of time and energy in their materials, in their programs, in their meditations, in their talks, in all of these things. And they're enacting a savior dynamic, which automatically puts you in the victim role and gives them this savior energy that they're actually, in a way, feeding off of. So now you've given up your power to this other person who seems that they know what they're talking about because they are psychic or they're a channel. And you know, I'm sorry to say psychic and the things. I have so many friends, so many clients, you know, that are psychic, and there's nothing wrong with psychics. Psychics are amazing and great, but we're all just seeing one lens, and we're seeing what we're seeing. And it's very important for us to be taking into account that whatever's being seen is being through the lens of that human person. No matter how evolved that they seem, there's some humanity that's they're lensing through. And that lens might be the one of trying to be the savior, maybe for the savior for the planet. And that this is a great way for them to set that up and to be in this savior victim dynamic. And so we don't really want to feed that, because it just creates more of that and doesn't create the highest relationships in our lives, because we're starting to have a hierarchical way of being in our relationships. So in a way, I can even see that there are some spiritual leaders out there who are actually actively feeding these dark forces, right? Because they're gathering groups of people together to basically meditate about how there's dark forces, to watch videos about how there's dark forces, to talk about how there's dark forces. And we're the only ones who are going to get out of this alive and move on in our evolution, because we're banding together over this common vision. And we like to do this as humans because we want a common vision. We want a common enemy. We want to have an enemy because that helps us to feel in some ways in control of this situation, which we don't have a lot of control over. So we're looking for that. We're looking for saviors. We're looking for enemies. And we're looking to create these dynamics, which in the end aren't actually healthy for us to come into our full power and to be truly free. We're creating a battle. We have the light and we have the dark. And we're on the battlefield with the light and the dark. And we all love this. It's part of our storytelling of humanity. All of our movies, our stories, there's a good guy, there's a bad guy, there's dark forces, there's light forces, they're at battle, there's gonna be a battle, there's gonna be a shootout, there's gonna be a fight, and hopefully the light forces are gonna win, right? Because that's what happens. And we've been trained to do this. And in some ways, when we're doing this, what we're doing is we're separating. We're creating duality. There is duality. We live in it. And we're investing ourselves in duality in this way by not seeing that we are creating more separation. We're holding ourselves back from being more in connection with the one, the source, the Tao, the all that there is, what we have the potential of being, the awareness that we are all one, that we are all consciousness moving through the human form in each individual person having experiences, but that we're all truly one. And when we start to create even more duality in our lives, we start to see more good and bad. We start to label more things as good and more things as bad. These angels over here are good, these demons over here are bad. These people over here are good, these people over here are bad. So then it becomes very easy for us to form this spiritual hierarchy that we're living in, where I'm good and I meditate and I'm spiritual and I care about the planet or animals or whatever. And and over here, these people are bad, and they're these muggles who are holding us back, who aren't spiritual, who aren't evolved, who are this, who are that. And we're casting judgment, we're criticizing, we're condemning, we're complaining. We're actually lowering ourselves in a way, even though we feel like what we're doing is being more spiritual. We're being more spiritually evolved by seeing how unevolved these other people are. And this is a trap. This is a trap for us to fall into, because then we're in separation. We're separating more. We're seeing more duality. And a really interesting piece of this is then sometimes our subconscious is getting involved. And what we're doing is we're creating a sense of, I'm rejected, I'm abandoned, no one understands me, because we get invested in these scenarios. And then we start posting about the scenarios, we start talking about it with your family, we start becoming really invested in this dynamic. And when people are like, I don't know about that, then we get to be in that position of, no one understands me, I'm rejected, I'm not respected. We get to wrap ourselves up in more story. We get to create and reinforce our feelings of separation by creating more duality and creating more places where things are in little buckets, where they fit in the bucket. And then we've made clear decisions about the way things are, and we're not budging about that. And so we become rigid, which is not actually the way that true spiritual evolution and practice is moving toward. So that's another thing that we do. So another thing that we do is that when we're invested in this dynamic and we're spending a lot of time thinking about, like, the dark forces are trying to get me and trying to get us and all of this stuff, well, we're allowing ourselves to take the responsibility for our internal states and also for our communities and our structures. So the things that we're feeling, we're having some outside entity that is creating those feelings for us, or creating the circumstances so that our feelings are justified. And then we're also starting to see that we're not part of the problem, right? We're like, well, if the real problem is that there's dark forces, then I don't have to look at myself. I don't have to look at how I am the dark forces. I don't have to look at how the dark forces are coming from me, that I am that anger, blame, judgment, desire, envy, lack of love, lack of forgiveness, lack of compassion. Like, these are the true dark forces. Like, this is the real deal that we have to work with in this lifetime, is to work with those dark forces. And that's the stuff that we don't want to mess with. We don't want to look at, because it would cause us to have to do a lot more work. It's so much easier to look outside of ourselves and blame something outside of us for what's going on in the world. So then we're also not taking responsibilities for our communities and our social structures, because we're part of the whole, we're part of the system. So we can really easily then have this big thing that's outside of us that's so huge that we don't do anything in our communities or bother to vote, or we kind of see dark forces everywhere. So we're like, well, every candidate is connected to the dark forces, so I'm not voting for anything. We don't want to go out into our communities where people aren't high vibe and spiritual enough for us. We don't want to be around those people. We don't want to support those people. So we disconnect ourselves from the systems and the structures that if we were actively changing and working within and working with, we might see a more light-filled experience on the planet. So it's a really great way for us not to take on responsibility. We also see it as a way to enhance and to continue to live into a victim consciousness. And I talked a little bit about this earlier with the savior and victim dynamic that comes up with some of our spiritual teachers. But if, you know, we all have victim, okay? So there's nothing, we've all had some moments in our lives where we've been a victim to something, and we have a tendency to try to maintain that role. And it's a very sneaky role. It's very sneaky. And it's really easy to stay in that victim dynamic if there's always something attacking us and always something pushing against us. And if something goes wrong or something doesn't feel good, if I'm having pain in me, then I need to look outside of myself for the source of that pain. And then that I am now the victim. And I am now, you know, I have weakness and I have vulnerability to this, as we all do. So we're all vulnerable. So I have vulnerability. So I'm now looking at my vulnerability. I'm looking at my weakness more than I'm looking at my strength, more than I'm looking at my power. And this can be a very huge drain on our life force. It can really take us out. It's like stepping into hell, because all of a sudden I'm in an experience where there's these massively powerful entities that are out to get me that I have no control over. And now there's a battle that needs to happen. And in that, usually the choice is then to create a bunch of spiritual hoops that now I need to jump through in order to be safe. So now there's like, okay, well, I've got to pray for this many hours before I go to bed so I'm not attacked. I've got to have very specific actions. I've got to have very specific thoughts. I've got to be around very specific people. I have to perform these elaborate rituals in order for me to be okay. And that's not real freedom. That's another form of repression. It's not this true embrace of joy and expansion. It comes from a root of fear. And when we start to stack our spiritual practices and our energetic practices on this root of fear, we're actually going to create more of that. We're going to create more compression in our system that we're going to be pushing against. And then that is going to feel very uncomfortable as we're building our energy or building our spiritual practices. We're creating more discomfort in us, which then will signal to us that if I'm so uncomfortable, there must be something out there that is doing something to me. So then we can misinterpret the intuitive and energetic information that we're receiving and attribute it to something else, which can create sort of the snowball effect where it's like, okay, more spiritual practice, more energy practice, more fear built on this, creating more of that, creating more discomfort. The discomfort means that something must be wrong. The discomfort must mean that I'm being personally attacked, or there's a wave of dark forces that are entering into the planet. And so now I need to do more spiritual practice. I need to do more. And this can also be exhausting, and it's also keeping you from maybe doing things that really are the soul essence of who you are, that light you up, that are creative, that are art, that are focusing on things that just bring you incredible joy and maybe are a beautiful contribution to the planet, because you're spending all of your time doing all of this spiritual jumping through hoops. When we do this, another thing that happens is we start to dissociate and take away our connection to Earth and to the consciousness of the Earth, to the consciousness of the ecosystems. And it's very well known that when an ecosystem is out of balance, it will find a way to balance itself. That if a species is taking over and it is destroying the ecosystem, very often a virus is the answer. Very often there are mass die-offs of a certain species because they're not seeking harmony in the environment, and the environment will seek harmony. Living structures seek harmony, just the same as your body seeks harmony. It's seeking homeostasis all the time. You can't stop it. So is the earth. As a living system, a living life force is seeking balance and homeostasis. And when we live out of balance for a long time, it's going to push us in one direction or the other. So if we look at it this way, we deny it by focusing on dark forces. We stop looking at how we are individually and collectively out of balance, and maybe start coming up with some smart solutions and some changes to fix that in our own lives, and then maybe in our communities and in our structures. We're focused over here instead of focused over here, which would actually get us what we're wanting, right? We're wanting harmony, balance, we're wanting evolution and consciousness, we're wanting growth, and maybe working over here would get us there faster than focusing over here, watching videos on YouTube and trying to figure out what meditation to do to combat this whole issue. It also takes away the possibility to see this in some way as a gift, that this is a blessing for us individually and collectively in some way, to see what we've been doing, to see the suffering that we've been creating, to see how people, animals, ecosystems are struggling and suffering and not thriving, and what we can be doing, and to use it as a wake-up call. Once again, if this can be an amazing, beautiful wake-up call, a very uncomfortable one, a very challenging one, but it can be. But it's a choice that we make. Do we choose to use it as an individual and collective wake-up call, or do we choose to engage in something that doesn't change anything? It doesn't change the way that we're engaging with the world, the way that we're interacting with our environment. So because we're seeing these things out of ourselves, everything's over there. There's light and there's dark, and they're battling, and I'm sort of in the middle of that, doing my thing, seeing how I can show up as a warrior in this. And I'm not actually looking at myself. Right? There's this holy war that's going on, and we're paying attention to it, and we're watching it, and we're like, yeah, that's definitely what's happening. But we're not seeing it as a mirror, and the mirror is where the growth edge is. Everything is here for your benefit. Everything is here for your growth. Everything is welcoming each one of us into a new way of being, into new awareness, into new habits, into new patterns, into new ways that we engage in our relationships, into new ways to open our heart. That is way more the point than trying to pay attention to and track this holy war that's going on. And in this, what happens is we just create tension, more tension, less flow and more tension. Flow and surrender are great ways to ride out a challenging situation. Tension, not such a great way. That's stress, that's worry, that's doubt, that's fear. It's tension in the muscles, which impedes the flow of energy through your body, which holds emotions in stagnation. So we want to release tension and let tension go. And wars between forces, that sounds very tense to me. It does not sound liberating. It does not sound like freedom. It does not sound like an ease of flow of energy and emotions, so that for me, that's I can stay balanced, I can stay centered, I can stay within a a positive possibility on the planet. You know, if something is not awakening you to virtues and making you calmer and more peaceful and more relaxed and more open, getting your mind open, opening your heart, it's not really worth your time. It should be questioned, because your natural state is one of openness, creative expression, joy, and fear and superstition are going to take you in the other direction every single time. You might not see it at first, but that's where it's headed over time. So the other question that I always look at when someone sends me one of these things and they're like, okay, dark forces and this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? You know, what am I going to do about it? And, you know, usually it's like, okay, well, do these meditations and get your 12th dimensional shield up and do this and that. And it's like, okay, great. That's in general, great advice for us to meditate, do practices that make us feel good, that open our heart, that calm us and center us, that ground us, that build our field with a high vibrational energy, that these are positive things, right? Yes, that's positive. But you know, when we bathe ourselves at the same time in fear of dark forces, like I'm doing this because of this, not because I'm creating more joy, not because I'm creating more energy, not because I'm creating more life force for myself, but because I need to battle dark forces, because I need to protect myself, because the world is going to end, then we're actually, even in the midst of doing all these practices, lowering our vibration. Because where you're coming from is where you're going. You can't separate the two. And so it's actually creating more fear. It's creating more imbalance. It's making it stronger. And in one level, it's feeding the entities that you're trying to not feed, right? You would like to starve them, but you're giving them all of this attention and focus. You're fighting against it. You're, resistance is fertile and not futile. It is futile and it's fertile. Resistance is fertile. What you fight against grows. And so here we are fighting and creating all of this dynamic energy around something, and we're just giving it more. So in one way, we could say that we're actually giving them exactly what they want. We're creating more of them because we are creator beings, and what we focus our attention toward, we make more of. What we have in our consciousness all the time, what we surround ourselves with, what we think about, what we watch videos about, that's more of that. More of that is being created all the time. So what do you want to spend your time creating? Is this where you want to come from in your spiritual practice? Is this where you want to come from in your energy practice? Not me so much, not what I'm investing my energy toward. In this, we also miss out on seeing the teacher in the demon. And I always see, you know, as a shamanic practitioner and as someone who teaches channeling works, and so I work with a lot of people who have either have had an entity, I've come in contact with dark entities, or who are opening their channel and then there's dark beings or entities in the field or communicating. And generally, when we come in contact with an entity, when we have something that's hanging around with us, when there's something there, there's something to be learned from it. There is the ability to be curious about it and learn from it because there's something there for us. And we can rip entities out of people all day long. And if they're not willing to change, to grow, to have new habits, to hang out with a different friend circle, to change the way that they're engaging in the world, to change their thoughts and their beliefs about themselves, the way that they treat themselves, not much progress is going to be made. The tendency is to re-attract a different kind of entity into the field, because we have to change. So in some ways, I see over and over and over again that darkness is a beautiful teacher. It is there so often to wake us up. When we embrace the darkness, in that we allow ourselves to sit with it and be curious with it, such as when we do medicine work or we go on a vision quest, sometimes some dark stuff shows up. And our tendency is to be like, no, go away, leave me alone. I'm scared of you. You're dark, you're ugly, you're mean. But if we get curious and we're just present with it, then oftentimes what we will experience is some sort of illumination, some sort of inner awareness. We start to get a bigger picture that what we at first believe, there's often something bigger that we haven't seen yet. You know, oftentimes when people are being attacked by evil spirits, these are wake-up calls. These are wake-up calls for unintegrated aspects of ourselves that are trying to reintegrate, or something that's trying to signal healing, something that's trying to signal imbalance, something that is trying to signal, hey, wake up. It is time for you to pay attention to something. But when we see it as something that's outside of ourselves that we need to protect ourselves from, we're actually protecting the thing that we want to maybe change in the world, which is us, our ego, our darkness, our own internal stuff. If we keep fighting external demons and we never reflect inwardly to our internal demons, we're missing the point. And all of us have them. All of us have our growth edges of where we can be looking at ourselves, integrating the parts of us that have been lost, that have gone away through trauma, that are invested in not being forgiving and not being kind and being judgmental and being in anger. All of these things, like these are our real demons. So these are the places to go to first when we are wanting to put everything outside. And when we're putting everything outside, we're actually feeding our ego. We're feeding our self-importance. We're so important that the dark forces are working against us. We're so important that we're at battle. We're so important that we have to build this stronger spiritual identity. Now I'm either the victim or I'm this spiritual warrior who's come to save the world. And I'm gonna save you all with my psychic information about the dark forces and tell you what to do. And I'm being, taken out by people and repressed by people because I have the truth. And yeah, you might have the truth, one truth of many millions of truths in a way, as there are so many. So in that we're grasping to identity. This is now my identity. So I need to build more of that by doing whatever spiritual practices or conversations that I need to have in order to build more of that ego, more of that identity. And in true spiritual work, we want to relinquish and surrender and let go of the knowing, let go of the identity, let go of all of it, come into a greater awareness that we are all one. And it's great. It's so sneaky, isn't it? It's such a sneaky way that we create more identity for ourselves. We create all of this so that we can have an identity, feel like we have some control over something, and have a knowing instead of a not knowing. Just not knowing and being okay with not knowing. And so many of us who have been leaders or coaches or spiritual whatever, we've become accustomed to being the one who knows. We become accustomed to being the one that people goes to get the knowing, and now we need to know, so now we need to have a solution. We need to have an answer. We need to come up with something quick. And it's very easy to tune into our intuition or our psychic abilities and come up with this solution and answer for people so that we're not left in the lurch of not knowing, of surrendering into, yeah, just don't know. But here's what I'm going to focus on. That's where I'm at. I'm just, yeah, all of it's a possibility. I just don't know. Here's where I'm going to put my attention and energy. So here's where we can put our attention and energy. I would like to see, where we start to look at how is this a natural process? If this is a natural process of the way that the earth works, the way of ecosystems work, how can I relax into my life because of that? How can I accept what is occurring because of that? How can I surrender? What if we choose to see it as a teacher, a guide, an awakening presence? Now this, when we sit with this, it's like, oh, okay, well, if this was here to teach me something, what would it be teaching me? Maybe it's teaching me patience or boundaries or stopping and not running around all the time, or not being focused on making money, or not needing to have the answers, or being more compassionate or kind to others, or fixing my relationships, developing a forgiveness practice, reaching out to people, creating connections where I wasn't before. So many lessons can be learned here. So the other perspective is, and I've talked about this, is like, if you are the dark force, right? If I am the dark forces, then I am a powerful creator, then this is a mirror. So how am I creating these dark forces? And looking at, okay, well, what are the dark forces that I'm holding on to? Resentment, judgment, criticism, complaining, anger, rage, selfishness, self-centeredness. There's plenty, right? There's plenty of things that we can start to see as the mirror. How am I not giving a shit about the environment? How am I in wrong relationship with my environment right now? How am I feeding into the structures and the systems that are supporting just out of control behavior in the environment? So how are you creating and feeding these dark forces with your fear? And also with talking down to yourself, with, that blame and shame, self-criticism, not taking care of your body, your energy, your boundaries, expressing yourself lovingly and creatively. It's like, that's another way that we are actually actively creating dark forces, right? And how are we not living in compassion and kindness and acceptance and loving our fellow man, loving everyone just as they are, even messed up as they are, like choosing to love anyway? And how are we using our spiritual practices or awareness as a separating force instead of a uniting force, as a way to create distance from others instead of creating connection? And this is really common as we become spiritual and we see ourselves in a certain spiritual light. We start to look down on others, and we start to do a lot of judging and, critiquing. And how are we using our spirituality to separate us from the whole instead of seeing ourselves as part of the whole and learning from the whole? And in that, judging people for being low vibe, judging people for manifesting this reality, judging people, all of these things, when we could just be like, okay, compassion to you, my brother, my sister, who's going through this very troubling situation where you're having this experience. We're all having this experience. We're all having it. And being in compassion, kindness around everything, right now and always. Okay. So here's some other things that are also going to help you out. Movement, dance, breath work, yoga, qigong, move your body every day, shake, 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 Get all of this, you know, dark force energy off of you, the fear, the, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to fix this problem? I need to solve this problem. Release it, you know, and use all of that energy to cry, to scream, to really grieve if you need to move the energy and release your attachment to your shadows and your wounds, and start to bring in your new essence of joy and creativity, of peace. Walk that every day as much as possible. Spend more time in silence. Spend more time in nature if you can. Build your support system, build your community, reach out to others so that you don't feel alone and abandoned. Vision and not looking for that savior, right? Vision what you want. Vision this new earth. Sit with that. What do you want the world to look like when all of this is over? What do you want the social structures, the government, the schools, food, everything to look like, to feel like, and feel it in your body, and sit and meditate with that. That is so much more powerful than sitting and meditating about how you need to protect yourself from these forces. Like, you are a creator. Create the new earth. Create it within yourself by feeling it, envisioning it, and as though you were already there, already had it in your heart, in your body, and all around you. And feel it moving through space, pulling all of us to that powerful projection of a new earth, a new possibility that is emerging from each and every one of us if we allow it. And be willing to share. Share yourself. Tell yourselves. Share your gifts. Share your vulnerability. Share, I'm scared and I feel out of control. I'm trying to blame something outside of me for all of this. That feels a little safer, but I don't know. I don't know anything. It might be a little bit more close to the truth. And, you know, as a channel, as someone who sees and knows and hears and gets all the information, right? I'm really going to encourage you to take anything you hear out there with a very giant grain of salt. It is coming through people's filters. It is coming through their belief systems. And it can be coming, sure, you can hear stuff from spirits, and it's just one facet. It's just one little view of so many things, so many possibilities. You can get so confused listening to people who are so certain that they know because they're getting the information from a vision or a hearing or knowing or an intuition. And so they just are certain that they know. And when you hear this information, really listen to your heart. And when you feel, yes, this is true, question that. Question it. Just be willing to question what you feel is true. Am I filtering this through my own beliefs? Am I filtering this through my own trauma? Do I feel more joy, expansive, creative potential in this? Or do I feel fear, contraction? Do I need to fix something? Do I need to control something? Do I need to know? Those are two different energies, two different possibilities. Am I connecting to this from my own creator aspect to make myself and the world a better place because of this? If this is inspiring the hell out of you and you feel just lit up and you're like creating all kinds of amazing things because of it, I don't know, maybe more power to you in that point. But if it's bringing you down, sending you to bed, worrying you, creating fear and anxiety, creating stress, shutting down your creativity, shutting down your purpose, shutting down anything, your heart at all, forget it. Let it go. You don't need it. Don't need it. I'm sorry this video is so long. It's almost over. There's so much to say here. You can just ask, like, Am I trying to invest myself in this in order to avoid pain, to avoid just being present to the current reality, to have some magical, mystical thing that I'm engaged in, some big otherworldly phenomenon, in order to not feel the earthly existence that I'm in order to not be present to just what's around me, which might suck. It might hurt. It might be painful or scary. And we love to figure out very interesting ways to dissociate and to distract. So, what if you could just surrender instead? Be present to the pain, to the loss, to the grief, to feeling everything, and just surrender instead of needing to fix it by knowing some larger thing that's going on. You know, this isn't about being so love and light, so, joy, whatever, bliss out, bliss bunny, that we don't see all the possibilities. You can hold that, yeah, there's this going on, this larger stuff. There's a lot of crazy geopolitical stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in our society, which isn't that great. And you can hold that. And you can hold that, there are dark things. There are dark people and dark beings that feed off of our fear and feed off of us. And some of them are in power of our countries and our companies and more. And you can hold that and have an awareness of it and not be taken out by it, not let it take you down and affect you in a way that you are not living your truest light. Because this is really more about, how this intentional cultivation of who you are and what is going to serve you and the world the most. So ask that question. Is this really serving me? Is this really lighting me up? Is this really, giving me something that makes me feel more calm and at ease and peaceful and joy and expression, all of the beautiful things that I know that I am? Is this lighting that up within me? I believe that right now we are in a very powerful possibility field. I feel it. I have received information about this, about the possibility that we are in. If we are willing to take it, if we are willing to tune into that possibility, to vision it, to create it, and be a creator and not get distracted. Not get distracted by all the noise and all the stuff that's out there, and really be an example of what it means to be holding it down right where you're at, even when you're struggling, to be in this higher vibrational field, which does not necessarily mean that I'm having to be actively battling a lower vibrational field. This doesn't mean that. It actually doesn't. What we can do is really to anchor in the love, to light, to be embodied inside of our physical bodies on this planet, even in the midst of the suffering and pain and confusion. To be that, so much so that no dark force would have a chance. That we were all in that creator mode, then we wouldn't even be considering that there was something working against us. We would already know that we are creating something new. Don't give them your time. Don't give them your energy. It's your life force that we're working with, that you're offering. What are you offering your life force toward? What are you creating more of? Build your light in all the ways that you can and shine it so brightly that there is no mistaking who you are. A beautiful contribution to this planet, and so needed at this time of intense transformation and growth and possibility through a lot of suffering and a lot of pain and a lot of darkness, dark night of the soul. We can't mistake a dark night of the soul for being attacked by darkness. And sometimes we do that in our own spiritual journey. You might have seen yourself do that from time to time, because we want to avoid what's real. We want to avoid the pain. We want to avoid the earth. We want to avoid reality. But just the same as when you're going through a healing process, there is no way out but in. There is no way to the other side but through. So here we are, all together, walking through. I know that this is a very long video. So if you've held on till now, I want to applaud you for that. And thank you for that. I appreciate your time and attention and being open to hearing some of this, because I know that this is a call to personal responsibility. This is a call to personal, true activation of your spiritual powers and presence. And I am grateful to have you in my community. I'm grateful that you exist on the planet and to be able to do the work that we're here to do together. And I am sending you a multitude of blessings for you, your family, your loved ones, your communities. And I look forward to seeing you. I won't be seeing you, but talking to you. I'll definitely be talking to you, at you, with you again soon. Please feel free to share this video if you found it helpful, and to comment, to subscribe to my channel, and more to be continued in the future.